Hi there, welcome to Simmo's Art Group, session 9. Today I'm going to do a watercolour painting of a family dog. The doggy's called Lady, and that might give you a clue to the breed. Oh! Are you ready? Let's go!
That sounded like an American accent. Where's that come from? Okay, we've got the drawing paper divided up into squares as usual, using the grid system. It's 10 wide by 11 deep. And I'm working from a photograph I took of a lady who was hanging out of a car window. I must add, the car was not moving at the time, it was parked up. But she was so excited to see me, she couldn't keep still, and it took quite a while to get the photograph. So as usual, I'm concentrating on getting the outlines. Forget the details for the moment, that's my mantra. The initial stage is just about getting the proportions correct in the right place before you start the painting. I've never drawn a dog before. I've drawn a camel. How much as that doggy in the window may have been a more appropriate backing track. But I think we'll go with a little Irish type tune instead. Right, so I've nearly got Lady drawn now. All the basic outlines, where her little patches of fur are, her floppy ears, her big eyes, and the little white streak on the head like a naughty gremlin. Time to get the grid lines rubbed out, and this time I'm going to use some masking fluid. Because she's got some quite large prominent whiskers which are prevalent on the photograph, I thought I would do some masking fluid lines so I can make sure that they're standing out by the end of the drawing. I start with a basic wash using raw sienna. Very, very light wash indeed. And then I drop some red and yellow. I'm looking for an orangey colour here because she has got quite an orange tinge to her fur. As ever, I start with a light wash. Using a medium-sized brush, and I'm painting wet onto dry with quite a lot of water in the mix. So while that wash is still wet, I mix up a darker tone of brown and add that to the existing wash. With the photograph, I see that her left side is much darker than the right side, so I focus on building that up. At this stage, I'm working wet on wet, so the colours merge. Sometimes you get what they call a happy accident, where you get a nice little blend of colours, virtually impossible to recreate. So focus at the moment is basically just to darken down this orangey colour. Add the darks, which will make that side stand out. And then I take a fan brush to pull through the wet wash to create fur. If you drag it outside of the outline, it's a very fine pattern emulating fur. It's a slow process, but you just got to stick with it and keep darkening down until it looks right and you feel happy with it. What we're doing here is creating tone, a dark against a light. As if you're doing it with pencil, you would darken that area and then leave the other side much lighter. I've added a little bit of Payne's grey into the dark brown, and that gives it more intensity. You could use dark blue or you could use crimson, whatever you prefer. I'm into a habit here which I'm not sure is good or bad, but I tend to use one tray. I start with the lighter colours, then add the darker colours. But essentially I'm mixing colours within the one tray, even though I've got about 6 or 7. You've heard the expression, if it floats your boat. And it does float my boat. In fact, it's the only way I can paint. But it seems to work. Let me know what you think. I suppose being practical, it means you've only got one tray to clean out at the end of the day when you're finished. Yeah, I'll go with that. Right, back to the job in hand. With so much fur, it's hard to define the face. And I think the main features here are the eyes, the nose, and to some degree the mouth, because it's not that easy to see the mouth. It's tucked away behind a thin line of fur. There again, when you put a plate of food in front of her, it suddenly becomes visible. I'm using a wash of mauve and Payne's grey and build that up steadily to become a little bit darker. I'm blending the colours here with a brush to try and emulate fur. As I mentioned on the Livramento drawing that I did, I put some colour in and then I drag it with a wet paintbrush to give a nice blendy effect. And I've done that with the eyes here. Start with a very light brown and then build up to a chocolate brown with a black pupil. And I put a little bit of masking fluid in here so that later on when it's dry, I can take an eraser and rub that masking fluid out to leave a patch of white. Alright, everything seems to be ticking over alright here. No disasters yet. Fingers crossed. As I say, I haven't drawn a dog before, so this is a new one for me. I was out with my camera yesterday, which has a telephoto lens, and I passed a field of cows who were lying there quite sedately until they saw me, and I think I caused a stampede that just disappeared into the distance. Actually, they may have been bulls. Anyway, you might see a picture of those in the foreseeable future. Right, back to the painting. I continue to darken down on Lady's left-hand side to make the muzzle pop. And I'm into the details now. It's starting to come together. It was a little bit weird before. I mean, it looks like she's got a Zapata moustache. The Charles Bronson look. I'm sure she wouldn't thank me for saying that. Let's see what happens in the end. Speaking of which, when do you stop painting? That's a big question, and it's dead easy to overpaint. So I'm taking my time here. I'm really spending a lot of time on the details here, trying to get the picture to come alive. There's so much fur and fluffy stuff on shore, which is quite difficult to replicate in a watercolour. But you've just got to bear with it and go down to a finer brush and try and pick out the lines where the fur is overlapping. So I've gone to a darker brown here. Oh, that's dramatic music. This track's called Crow Soup. Don't ask me why. Probably for the same reason I called that other track Monkey Nuts. It's amazing the things you come to think of when you're narrating a drawing. Look, come on, focus. Let's get this done. All the time working from light to dark. And if it's too dark, I'll drag the paint out with a wet brush. In fact, I've gone to a bigger brush here. I need some more shading in. And I've done just what I said there. Put some in and then lifted some out because it was a bit too severe. I'm looking at the details around her eyes. She has got like a black line around her eyes, which gives her like a big googly effect. Just so cute. I'm trying to get the mouth right, but it's not easy. Stop your whinging and just get on with it, man. That's the breed of the dog. They're like hippie dogs. They've got hair everywhere. Yeah, I used to have hair like that. But not like the dog. What hippie hair? It was all the fashion in the 70s. That was a while ago. Right, it's down to the smallest brush in the case. Let's try and draw individual strands of fur, if that's possible. We could be here all night. Detail is the little link she has on her collar. I just draw a semicircle to infer that that's there. And it's back to the hairy stuff, and quite a lot of it. I don't know if I'm imagining this, but all of a sudden it seems to have come together. I can actually see a dog's face now as opposed to just a massive ginger hair. And when you look at the picture you think, butter wouldn't melt in its mouth. Aye, right. But she is a good-natured dog. Bless. It's quite a long video, this, compared to the other ones I've made. And that's because I really took my time over this one. And I wanted to make sure that the details were correct. Put some little orange streaks now in the lower parts of the fur under the chin. And then it's back to the darkened areas again. I want it even more dramatic. I think I've learned that from the pencil drawing where tone is so important. Well, this is progressing better than I thought. I'm actually quite happy with this. I did a landscape the other day and I went straight in the bin. It was rubbish. Dreadful. I much prefer drawing people, or in this case, pets. When I was out with the camera a couple of weeks ago, I got a really nice shot of some blackberries. I might try that next. I'll get the background in before I sign it, because normally it's the other way around. But it's almost there. I signed it and then I did my usual and went back to it. I wasn't happy with a couple of bits and pieces. Those big innocent eyes in particular. And the delicate little mouth that would never pinch a sausage off your plate if you left it on the floor. But it's almost there. And you'd be delighted to know I'm not going to do some music at the end of the video. I'm just going to let it fade out because it's quite a long video. I still feel the eyes need a little bit more darkening down. And there we are. If you enjoyed that video, please let me know. I would appreciate a like and subscribe if you would like to see some more. We'll see you next time.